Hi everyone, in this video I want to talk about piecewise functions. In particular, what are they and why should they be important to us? First, I just want to add that piecewise functions can also be sometimes referred to as hybrid functions. So if you see that term come up, just recognize that they are the exact same thing. Let's quickly remember what a function is. A function is a relationship between a given input, which we typically call x, to one specific output, which we typically call y. Therefore, we plug our input into this function and get a single output like so. But what if after a certain input, the equation to determine our output changes? We could think of this like when you get charged extra for using too much data on your cell phone, or how you can typically save money by buying stuff in bulk. Well, now that you know why we need piecewise functions, let's create a better definition of piecewise functions. A piecewise function is a function that is described by two or more equations. So, depending on what our input to the piecewise function is, the equation that we are applying the input to will be different. Piecewise functions are best understood through examples. So, let's take a look at one to give you a more graphical understanding of what piecewise functions look like. Let's say that your cell phone company has the following internet plans for your cell phone. For the first gigabyte of data, you are charged a flat rate of $15. If you exceed that first gigabyte, then you are charged $20 plus $5 prorated for every additional gigabyte of data that you use. Therefore, we know that we have a piecewise function because our function is defined by more than one equation. We commonly denote piecewise functions the following way. As you can see here, we break up the function into the various equations, and on the right side, we write the condition over which the equation applies. Therefore, the first one only applies over the first gigabyte, and the second equation applies over all data uses above 1 gigabyte. So, to graph a piecewise function, we can test various inputs over the domain. Remember, that means that the inputs to our function that we are allowed to use. So, to graph a piecewise function, we can test various inputs over the domain, which, remember, is the inputs to our function that we are allowed to use, of the two equations. So, let's begin with the function 1. The domain of this equation, since there is no chance for a divide by 0 or a negative under an even root, is all values above 0, since we cannot have a negative amount of data used, up to 1. Now, as we can see here, since this is a constant value, our output will remain constant at $15 from 0 up to and including 1. Since we are including 1 in the domain of this first equation, we use a solid dot to denote that. Now, let's take a look at the second equation. We will again begin by noting the domain, which again has no chance for a divide by 0 or a negative under an even root. Therefore, the domain will be all values slightly above 1 to positive infinity. Now, we can plug in a number of inputs within the domain of this equation, and since both terms are only either a constant or a constant times a variable, we know that this equation is going to be linear, and we only really need 2 points to fully describe it. Therefore, we have the following graph. Just please note that the start of the second equation on this graph has an open dot at 1. This is because anything larger than 1 will always use our second equation even if it is really close to 1. Say 1.0000001 gigabytes used. However, if you are at exactly 1, we use the first equation to determine how much money we owe. You can also see this in the domain, as a square bracket will lead to a filled circle, and the round bracket will lead to an empty dot. In the next video, we will go through several examples of solving piecewise functions. So, if you are still slightly confused after this video, that following video should clear up any uncertainty. Thank you for checking out this video. I hope it helped your understanding of piecewise functions. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe to support our channel. However, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns about the information I provided in this video, please leave a comment down below and I will do my best to address your concerns.